Dr. Muni, welcome. Can you start by giving us the context for today's meeting and what do you think would be the key takeaways, given the fact that the finance ministers, when they met in Bengaluru, could not arrive at a consensus and there was no joint communique? Does that then mean that Minister Jaishankar's diplomatic tests are facing the ultimate test today?
Well, look at it. There are two aspects of this meeting. Essentially, G20 has to concentrate on economic issues. But these economic issues are trapped today in the European war between Russia and Ukraine. So on the one hand, the economic issues must be sincerely discussed and a consensus should be arrived. As Prime Minister Modi said very clearly that, and I think Jaishankar has also indicated, there should not be much problem when it comes to building a consensus on the economic issues. But economic issues that are affected by war is a big problem. And this is where, the finance ministers could not arrive at a consensus on how to formulate the position on war. And I think this is a major issue even now before the foreign ministers. And that's why Prime Minister Modi indicated that they should draw lessons from India's civilization where we all stand up united and not divided. And he appealed to the conscience of the foreign ministers of G20 countries and all others who are joining us that they somehow should, bridge their differences so far as this war issue and collective conflict issue is concerned.
But do you see that happening, given the fact that the Russians will be in that room, the Chinese will be in that room? Because there is a possibility that if too much time is spent on Ukraine, which seems intractable at the moment, the low-hanging fruit, where possibility, Professor Muni, of the sides finding common ground will be lost out. So should the focus be on first finding the meeting ground on the low-hanging fruit and then looking for a solution on what seems potentially intractable given the fact that the Russians will be in that room?
You have a very strong point, Rajdeep, that the efforts must be made, and I think this is where the challenge before Indian diplomacy is, that while the war hangs over the entire conference, they must, stick out the consensus aspects. But the world, particularly the 9 of the G20 countries, European, US, and their allies, they are very insistent on a concrete position to be taken so far as the war issue is concerned. So they are vitiating the economic issues. You are absolutely correct. I mean, this is precisely the dilemma. Therefore, the challenge before India today is to get a consensus on economic issues while talking about war and conflict issues. And at the same time, I mean, it sounds like almost a miracle if Jaishankar can put 4 foreign ministers together: US, European Union, and China and Russia.
There's also a bilateral meeting, Professor Muni, at noon between Qin Gang, the new Chinese foreign minister, and Minister Jaishankar. The military confrontation between the PLA and the Indian Army in the sectors of Depsang and Demchok continues. There's a big SCO summit mid-year, then there is the G20 leader summit in September. Are you expecting a breakthrough, or is the stalemate likely to continue?
Well, I don't expect a breakthrough. I don't think Chinese are in a mood to have any compromise, and therefore we will have to deal with this stalemate in different forms, in different meetings and different conferences. I don't see that. But here on the Ukraine conflict, there is a certain bridging of distance between China and India. And I think if these two countries put all their efforts together to bring together the Russians and the Europeans and the US, that would be a miracle of this meeting. I mean, that would actually underline the genius of India in bringing the conflicting forces together.
Okay, let me ask you this question. If you're Jaishankar this morning, what do? You know that Russia will not want war to be included. You know that China is speaking about deep strategic ties and therefore is largely on Russia's side. You know that Europe and the United States are vehemently determined that the word war be included. It was included in Indonesia and therefore there is no dialing back on that. How would you navigate this diplomatic landmine? What should Dr. Jaishankar be doing?
Well, I think Jaishankar, the problem is that Russians want the causes of the war to be listed somewhere in a unanimous decision, if at all. The Europeans and the US do not want that. But this is where the problem is, and this is where I think the Jaishankar will have to nudge them together. That's why I said if we can put these 4 foreign ministers together, that in itself would be a great achievement, and when they sit together, they'll have to find out what the common ground is. It is possible they still fail to do that. But if that can be done by Dr. Jaishankar, and that's what he has been trying, last 2 days, he is meeting them individually, talking to them. Earlier also, we have been in constant communication with all these countries to see what can be achieved at this G2 meeting, because we have made tall claims that we are the one who are bringing about a peace in the world. Therefore, concrete results will have to be achieved out of this meeting. And I think
no, but given the intractable differences, it's very difficult to achieve any common ground. It is now quite obvious that any host would want that there be a joint communique, because that's how you determine the success of a summit. But if the world is at war and the differences are as stark as they are over Russia, Ukraine, will the inability to forge a joint communique be seen as a failure or a defeat or a setback for the home country, or do you just shrug your shoulders and say, hey, what can we do about it? We tried our best.
No, I mean, you have a point. We all accept that this is a major challenge. But the success comes out of, the bigger success comes out of the bigger challenges. So as I said, if Jaishankar can persuade these 4 foreign ministers individually or collectively to make some compromises, if Europe can accept that, let Russia in its own language define what were the causes of the war, and Russia must accept that aggressing on a sovereign country was wrong. I mean, if these 2 basic points can be pushed together, let us try and push it. I mean,
okay. That's a tall order, though.
What you are saying,
that's a tall
nothing
order.
would come out of it.
And there's a good thing that Dr. Jaishankar is not watching at this time, Rajdeep, because that's no ordinary amount of pressure. That's huge pressure, and he really has to have some kind of magic wand to make it happen.
Particularly because, there's a limited amount of time. You might be able to use this meeting as a platform for possible future meetings, but with...
No, but if there's a breakdown in this meeting, it vitiates what may happen between now and September.
I think a breakdown is unlikely, much like what happened in Bali. There will be an attempt made at least to paper over the cracks. But you've got a spring offensive on the ground going on with the Russians. I don't think Vladimir Putin is worried about, therefore, what happens.
Putin didn't go to Bali, so it's easier for Russia to accept.
That's right.
With India would like him to come, and Putin, because he's friends with India, would like to come as well.
Sure, that's in September, of course, but I'm just saying that,
and before that in the SCO summit mid-year.
I think to achieve a breakthrough in this one meeting alone will be very, very difficult.